I really miss my little beer fridge that is beside my desk that I could just have it there with me. It was just seriously the best beer fridge that I had.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the PC Perspective Podcast. We've reached episode number 717 somehow. It's April 5, 2023 as we record this. I am Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
Boeing never really released a 717. I mean,
True.
They sort of did later on when they bought the McDonnell Douglas and they did the MD, 80, and then they called it the 717. But it really wasn't the 717. It was a 707. Then they went to 727. They skipped. But it was, it was actually the Air Force tanker that was kind of considered the 717 based on the... Anyway, I'm Josh Walrath.
No. Complete lack of pithy comment here. I'm Brett Van Smernberg.
And I'm Kent Burgess.
See,
I'm probably questioning why you're here.
Right to the point. Just introduced himself like a human being. Well, we've gathered here again today to, talk about the topics at hand. There's kind of a big story. If you've been following tech media today, a big launch today. But first, let's thank our patrons. You can go to patreon.com/PCPer and be like Stephen L., who actually keeps this going. So, Stephen, thank you. And also, this is your fault. So,
yes.
Partially, in a very small way, this is indeed what happens from here on out is partially your fault. Thanks.
Exactly. It's including segments like this, the burger segment. Josh, please take it away.
Is it really that time again?
Yeah.
It is. It is.
So anyway, you've seen this one before, but we added a little dash of interest to it. It's the Johnny Cash burger. And it's got jalapenos, flaming hot Cheetos, queso, buffalo hot wing sauce, 2 patties. But really the topping is those flaming hot Cheetos. They give it a really satisfying crunch, and the heat that comes off from the buffalo sauce and the jalapenos and those it all just combines, and that's why it's the Johnny Cash burger, because eventually you too will be singing about the Ring of Fire. The other thing, he gave me 2 free wings because it was International Cuisine Week in Laramie, and so they all had to choose something, and these are Malaysian-style chicken wings. So it's a mix of, it's dry rub, it's a curry, cumin, chili powder, all kinds of other stuff. They left them refrigerated in that stuff overnight, and then they fried them. So they're almost like breaded, except that bread is all spices. And then it's got some kind of soy-based dipping sauce that was, kind of earthy, tangy, a little sweet. But yeah, this was a good day. I'm not going to eat for 2 days. And who can complain about getting 2 free chicken wings that were extremely well done, perfectly cooked, excellent.
We're going to move into news, and the top story is AMD launches the Ryzen 7 7800X3D, or at least they review.
I think it's a little big, personally.
Well, it's just a picture. I don't know if it's actually that size.
Actual.
I don't know. I haven't seen it in person because salty commentary warning. We didn't get one, so I don't know what it looks like in person. But we're going to look at Kit Guru's review. Leo over there, Kit Guru.
It's not that big. Leo's just very small.
Okay.
You got the high end one. Come on, you did get the.
Yeah, but everybody knew. Everybody should have known, and I think we've kind of hinted around about it. That, or maybe except for Josh, that the 7800 X3D was going to be the one to get. Forget this 7950 X3D is really impressive because it has a much lower power draw than the non 3D version of it. So even for just general computing, it was great because it runs way cooler than the original one, and it's not that much slower for compute tasks. But the 7800 X3D, that single CCD with the 3D cache, it's the direct successor to the 5800 X3D, the greatest gaming processor in the history of the world on AM4. And now we've got an AM5 version. I've got to remember where the actual gaming benchmarks start here. It's either page 3 or 4. Look at that power consumption. 93 watts running A 10-minute Cinebench. That's ridiculous. And the temp was 77. That's about where the temps were with the 7950, wasn't it?
Look at that 5800 X3D.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
It's pulling even less. 74. Ooh.
remember when they launched the 7000 series and they said 95 was normal because it gets to 95 and then it determines what frequency it can operate at? It's basically throttles. Well, these 3D parts don't throttle. So there's one advantage right there.
Yeah, but they also don't tell you 95 degrees is normal.
Because it never was. Marketing said it was, though. All right, here's gaming results. Let's see, 1440p. That's not the best way to test CPU performance in gaming, but whatever. It's an enthusiast resolution. So the 7800 X3D is actually right up there with the 7950 X3D. For some reason, the lows, the 1% lows are a little bit lower here. We'll talk about some possible complications with testing this processor as well. Here's 1080p, and it's actually slightly faster on average. Again, something going on with the 1% lows, but the long and short of it is with this review at Kit Guru, the way that they tested it, the platform that they used, software, chipset, OS, this new 7800 X3D was consistently the fastest processor in every test in gaming. It depends on what outlet you look at, and it depends on whether or not they did a clean install for this and various other factors, whether the chipset driver install actually took, whether it's being optimized in the OS or not. But at least in Kit Guru's findings, this is faster or potentially faster than the 7950 X3D. It costs less money, draws less power, lower temp.
This chip, it throws down the gauntlet. Yar.
It's the one we were waiting for. It's
the promised one.
It's the chosen one.
Balance to the force.
Chosen. Yeah.
We'll bring balance to the CPU wars.
Al in the YouTube chat is bringing up that Gamers Nexus, who of course have a video review of this new part, they had to reinstall Windows to get it to work properly. There's one of the links I put in our show notes. Here's 3dcenter.org on Twitter, who posted, if you don't reinstall Windows for this new part and had a 7950 X3D in the system beforehand, which is exactly what I would have done, then the benchmark results will be lower than normal. So they're citing Tech Power Up's review where it underperforms compared to the 7950 X3D. But all of this is very subjective. You can do everything right and still the performance doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
So, and then apparently it's not just optional. Like, look at the Gamers Nexus conclusion on this matter. I had weird results with the 7950 X3D, and I got two different sets of results depending on whether or not I had a clean install and whether or not I had reinstalled the chipset driver after a CPU swap, which is another thing AMD said that we needed to do. But apparently that's just not optional. You just have to have a clean install. Although I do have to love the comments, like the lack of understanding of how this stuff works. Comments like, it's hard to accept a lazy reviewer who doesn't do a clean reinstall of Windows every time they review a new product.
Oh.
Hey.
Okay.
I got words for you later.
I mean, if you only review one or two products a year, go ahead, knock yourself out. But when you have a platform test bed, like this is my AM4 test bed, this is my AM5 test bed, this is my Z690 test bed, you have a dedicated install of Windows with a certain chipset driver revision, and you can do your comparative testing. Once you start doing things like clean installs, different chipset versions, you start to muddy the waters to the point where you negate. You start to negate the previous results. So, also, I guess I'm a lazy reviewer if I ever reuse a single damn result from any previous review. So,
also true.
Because here's the long and short of it. Unless something major happens, or you wait a year, if you are 2 iterations of drivers, you're going to see less than a 2%, and in fact, it just gets lost in the noise. But if you're reviewing something for the first time in a year, okay, Intel maybe a little bit of an outlier when it comes to that. But talking NVIDIA and AMD drivers,
they've got the 7950 X3D on these charts, and I understand that they need to show a difference between these processors, but nobody is running even a 7800 X3D or a 7800X or any Ryzen 7000 series or Intel 13th gen at 720p. And I mean, 1080p is still showing the mass on the Steam hardware review, but most people with the hardware that expensive are running 1440p monitors unless they're gaming competitively and need 340
but
frames
Kent,
per
don't
second.
you understand that you have to test the latest processors with a 4090 at these ultra low quality settings to prove that it is theoretically possible that somebody's choice is better than somebody else's choice for their platform?
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It's like if you're a normal gamer and you've got yourself like a 1440 monitor or a 4K monitor, or if you're into ultra wide and you just want to game at high or even ultra settings, and you buy a $600 or $700 processor and a $1,500 graphics card or $1,000 graphics card or whatever, obviously you need to turn everything down to the lowest setting so that then you somehow artificially manufacture a CPU bottleneck, and then you can thumb your nose at the person who didn't buy the CPU that you bought. And then
here I thought it was just to move the performance bottleneck as best they could towards the CPU to amplify differences. Here, that's kind of what I thought it was. Maybe I'm wrong. I must be wrong.
I would caution anybody who is going to base a purchasing decision, if they're totally platform agnostic and they don't care whether it's AMD or Intel or which generation of AMD, don't just base everything on one source. Unless, honestly, Gamers Nexus is probably the best source to use if you're going to do single source. You got to look around because most of these outlets, their results are going to be different. And it's not even, sometimes they're not even close. Like you'll have one CPU on top at one outlet and another one on top at another one, or maybe two places down. And I doubt very few people ever clean install before any review, because it's a huge pain in the neck, especially if you're doing any kind of game testing, because you probably already have your Steam library set up, or your Epic Games library, or your GOG library, and it's all installed and configured, and it's the right version number. And you can't mix version numbers either. Performance with Cyberpunk 161 is different from 160, is different from 150, is different from launch. So that kind of thing. If you look at this story from videocards.com from a day or so ago, MSI internal testing, there were these slides that came out before this embargo lift. Look at the difference between stock and then turning Expo on to put the DDR5 at 6000, and then the high efficiency mode, and then again at enhanced mode boost 3, which is apparently an MSI setting for their motherboards, plus Expo and high efficiency mode. The thing just scales. It's scaling in Shadow of the Tomb Raider, Metro Exodus, Watch Dogs Legion, Far Cry 6, Final Fantasy 14, Endwalker benchmark. So you're getting better performance and lower power draw. It seems to be a nice linear scale of at least a few percent. That says up to 9 to 12% higher game performance compared to stock settings. I mean, this is already a super efficient part, as we have seen. So this is the one. This is the one to get. We're talking sub 100 watt power consumption when you're gaming. Boost it even further and lower the power consumption even more. This is going to be the one to get. It's just a well-bend part, I guess. Any more on the 7800 X3D?
I said, if you can get Expo to run. I've seen a lot of folks having trouble. Jay's 2 cents put a 7950 X3D in his new personal rig, and he could not get Expo to run on it at all, and had to run his very expensive set of RAM at 4800.
I had the same issue. I updated.
It's your favorite thing, isn't it? Expo?
I updated to the latest BIOS to support the X3D when I got the 7950 in for testing, and then I could not get the AMD provided G-Skill GDR5 6000 kit to run with Expo anymore. I ended up rolling back after I put the non-3D part back in.
When is the 7800 X3D going to retail channels? You know?
Tomorrow.
Oh, tomorrow. Great.
April the 6th.
AMD has announced the A620 chipset. We knew it was coming. We knew we were going to get an ultra low cost ecosystem for AM5, but this is better than I expected. I want to hear how you guys feel about this. All the major partners are on board. ASRock, ASUS, Gigabyte, MSI, and BioStar are pictured here. A wide portfolio of options for AMD Ryzen 7000 series processors reads the slide here. But if you look at the feature matrix, graphic here, which is useless if you're listening to this, but I will try to describe it to you. You are losing out on PCI Express lanes, yes, but you still have a full by 16 Gen 4 for your graphics card with an additional 4 lanes dedicated to your high-speed storage, also Gen 4. It doesn't support processor overclocking, but it does support memory overclocking and expo. And you get, less...
No USB too many.
Yeah, no USB 20 gigabit per second, but you do get 10 gigabit per second and, of course, 5. And this is just supposed to be your basic productivity desktop business platform, but if it weren't for one thing, I think this would actually work for most people.
I'm looking for 2.5G internet or Ethernet at least here.
No, we talked about that
sorry.
before. It's according to Josh, that's totally irrelevant.
Now let's just forget what Josh's opinion is on that for a moment, and let's just see.
Yeah,
And then the price point. The most important part is they're doing this to hit a price starting at
And that's what amazes me.
$85 United States dollars SEP.
It's a bloody third of the price.
Now, here's the problem. It supports 65 watt TDP processors. But it says and beyond.
and beyond.
So it's up to the motherboard vendor. If they want to put Vetter VRM on their motherboard and say, hey, this supports up to 105 or 120 or whatever, then this could be very interesting.
Are you foreseeing a lot of very, very upset consumers in the future that don't pay attention to that 65 watt limitation?
Yeah, I mean, the return rates will be high if they can't get the system to post. But
Yeah.
I'm hearing that the non-X Ryzen parts, which I have not tested yet, the 65 watt parts are fantastic. So lower power draw, lower temperatures.
And very close in performance.
Yeah.
We're getting to that ragged edge of optimization.
Well,
With the last 5% costs,
Go ahead.
35% power increase.
That was exactly my point. Yeah, pretty much.
It's a nice offering because the 650s are bloody expensive for lower end. I'm sorry. I mean, I understand, yes, there was a significant cost in designing them, making them, putting them out there, but when you're trying to scrape together a computer system for like the $500 mark and hoping to reuse, some things, it's hard to do. This, as long as you're paying attention to what you're doing, buy a big enough SSD that the 1M.2 slot, I'm assuming, because they've just got the one PCI, or the one set of 4 lanes for an NVMe drive. I mean, yeah, pay attention, but this would be great if you can find one for about $100.
It takes it down to the AM4 entry level.
Yeah.
There were when I did my last when I last priced out an AM4 build to see how low it could go, somewhere in the neighborhood of $80 to $85 was the cheapest available, like in stock motherboard. So AM5 processors, like a non-X part, under $200 plus one of these boards in the $85, $90 range. DDR5 is getting cheaper every week.
Yeah. Well,
finally
can
to
they
that
do
point.
like a DDR4 line and a DDR5
No.
line?
No.
No.
The platform has no
It's gotta
DDR4
be-
support.
Okay.
No.
So yeah, so I
CPU
was just
doesn't
wanted to
have
make
that
sure.
ability.
I just wanted to make sure everyone
unlike
remembered that.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I
don't
really
think-
Plan for that.
it would have been great if they'd offered it, and then the lower end boards, like there'd be a dividing line somewhere in like the B550 versus 550E.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, 650 and 650E. The 650 could have been the DR4 board.
And I don't think the loss of PCIe Gen5 is a big deal.
For what?
Not for
graphics cards,
GPUs. Not for GPUs.
not for I mean, in graphics cards, you're still even with a 4090 going from a Gen 4 to a Gen 3. You're seeing generally less than a 2% loss. Usually about 1 to 2 frames per second in games that are running at well over 100 frames per second. So yeah, it's going to be a long time before we see where there's a bottleneck for graphics cards to need Gen 5. And SSDs, I don't know. I mean, I've barely noticed any difference between a high-end Gen 4 and a high-end Gen 3 SSD.
Yeah.
In normal
Well,
use.
the games aren't programmed for it at this point. They never conceived of, a storage bandwidth of this extreme level. And so I don't think they're putting in delays and calls and stuff that are expecting a bit of time before your storage media can get to it. And meanwhile, that PCIe 4.0 was just going, yeah, no, come on, feed me more. I can do that. Hey, you want me to take over some video memory? I'm sitting here doing nothing at this point.
So let me get this straight. You don't have a workload that will actually push PCIe 4.0. But gave me a hard time when I said gigabit is all you really need, right?
Well,
No,
gigabit is significantly lower bandwidth than even Gen 2's had a storage.
Yeah, but
Look, from the PCIe 5.0, 4.0, 3.0 conundrum, there's a certain aspect here, and I'm going to echo something that Sebastian said a few minutes ago. There's a social pecking order to these sort of things. And if you're not making the same decision as me, clearly, in some way, you're going to be inferior. Oh, I'm sorry that you couldn't afford PCIe 5. Your decision is inferior.
Well, right. It was a little pissing contest just because, one comes out with something that has 4.
Exactly.
Intel was left behind with 3. Then they caught up with 4. AMD was originally going to release, according to the leaks and stuff.
Yeah.
If you can believe that, they were originally releasing their next gen platform with 4. Intel comes out with 5, and AMD goes back to the drawing board. And then we come out with their high end solution being like these 2 chipsets working in tandem, and then they have PCI Express 5 and all these lanes, and they made it happen. They did it. And the boards were really expensive because guess what? Configuring the board to support the signaling of Gen 5 speeds is more expensive than Gen 4. And Gen 4 was significantly more expensive than Gen 3 was. So all Gen 5 did was drive up motherboard prices, and I challenge anybody listening to this or watching this, please comment and tell me the model number of the Gen 5 device that you use with your PC every day. Does anybody have a Gen 5 SSD that they're using? Is there even available for sale?
yes.
We've seen pictures. There's like these tiny little 30 millimeter fans on them.
Yes, there are.
Yeah.
I believe there's
They're
2 of them for sale now.
Okay.
Yeah.
They're stupid expensive. They've got active cooling, and yeah.
Because we know that
Good luck.
zero GPUs are Gen 5. They'll be Gen 4 for probably another generation. Because there's no need to go to Gen 5. There's plenty of bandwidth.
There may be some situations that you need an interconnect that is of that speed, and maybe storage, but maybe between platforms or between certain devices that people are gluing together in maybe the commercial realm or very, very high speed data center type needs of that nature. But at home, I really challenge your workload here on this, especially in the GPU space. We're just not there yet.
Let's pause here for a word from a podcast sponsor.
Are you a person with a knack, a condition characterized by an extreme intuition about how things work, especially now in the computer systems and software space? Well, people like us can often find it difficult to settle into just the right role for our careers. Well, Bloomberg is out there building a world-class information network for financial professionals, and they're looking for engineers to join them. Personally, I know that I've always wanted to work on challenging projects that had real impact on actual shipping products and services, and sometimes that has just not worked out. While I've not yet worked for Bloomberg, they're forward-looking and are building tools their clients will come to rely on for systems that matter in solving real-world complex problems across global capital markets. They're working in real-time market and enterprise data with sophisticated analytics that are touched by over 350,000 professionals. Bloomberg systems operate at tremendous scale with over 300 billion, yes, B as in billion, market data messages daily. And you can get involved. You're not going to get locked into a proprietary shop either, as Bloomberg's engineers are active members of the open source community in both leveraging and making commits back to those projects. Learn more about the opportunities that await you by visiting Bloomberg.com/careers. That's Bloomberg.com/careers.
We're back, and we're going to talk about something that I thought this was an April Fool's joke, although it didn't really feel like one. On April 1st, the ASUS ROG official Twitter account had this thing they were demonstrating. There was a little video clip called the ROG Ally. # play all your games. And it looks like a Steam Deck competitor. Well, here they have updated this. Not an April Fool's joke. This is from April 3.
Yeah. Well, because if you put that on an April Fool's Day, everyone assumes that, oh, yeah, it's totally not a joke.
Yeah, like...
Well, you know what this is based on. What other CPU do you know of that has pretty good graphics capabilities?
AMD. It's like
Could
that
it be
device we talked
AMD?
about a few weeks ago on the Gaming Quick Hits. I don't remember the name of it, but handheld unit like this, AMD Ryzen APU. Anyhow, this apparently is a real thing. AnonTech has an article about it. Anton over there has some thoughts about this. People thought it was an April Fool's joke, but it's not a joke. It's a teaser of something that ASUS is working on, courtesy of Dave 2D, who got an early look at the console.
I mean, it's actually a full 1080p, which is interesting at this aspect and size.
It's instead of 1610, 1280 by 800 like the Steam Deck, it's 16:9, 1920 by 1080. It's 120 hertz instead of 60. Yeah, I mean, it probably works great when plugged in with a USB-C cable, but I cannot imagine that increasing the resolution and refresh rate and making the screen brighter is going to help battery life in any way.
You have a good point. I see a future of dock for this.
Yeah. He's
You
just
forgot
kind of
the other
guessing about that.
major battery draw here. YouTube chat says that it runs Windows 11. That is unfortunately a major battery
Joy.
suck.
That's the April Fool's part. Like, hey, instead of running Linux and having us have optimized games running on it, then no.
And a much lighter OS, so far fewer wasted cycles doing, I don't know what the hell Windows is doing half the time. Doing whatever.
Neither does it.
I would not be surprised if in the next year or two we see more and more companies, like there'll be an Alienware handheld and there'll be an HP Omen handheld. Maybe even Kelt will put out a Falcon Northwest handheld. You never know.
Okay, that one would be very nice. You should.
It would be super nice. Yeah, it would be like the best hardware. All extruded aluminum. Oh, hey, you know what? Speaking of Falcon Northwest, what a transition! Whoever would have thought? So Falcon Northwest has brought back their desktop replacement. This is the DRX, the latest DRX, which they say is zero compromise desktop replacement. So you've got yourself an RTX 4090 or 4080 mobile, 24 core, 32 thread Core i9 processor, 64 gigs of DDR5, Gen 4 storage, 7.7 pounds. And I like how honest they are about battery
Blowers
life.
in the back because it needs it.
Battery.
That's a lot of nuts.
Battery. 1 hour gaming runtime. That's
yeah, that
honest.
seems fair.
Yeah. It's a chunky laptop. It's got a big enough battery to give you an hour. Otherwise, you need to plug this thing in. It's a desktop replacement. I mean, think about the old days when a portable machine was just that. You would find an outlet, plug it in.
Oh, no, that's bold. 7.7 pounds of solid muscle. Like, they're just straight up saying, yeah, your arm's going to be tired.
It's got a 144 hertz, 4K, 17-inch display, NVIDIA G-Sync, 100% DCI-P3.
3M.2s. I like that.
Yeah, it's big.
Well, I bet you one of them's on that Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Expansive I/O. You know what? I like a laptop that actually has ports. Apple fans.
You stop with that. I'm not sure.
Although I'm not seeing an
SDH.
SDHC/XC slot on it.
No, but there's a USB port that you can just put the adapter in.
Yeah, that's true.
And
Plus,
still have one for your mouse and keyboard.
Fully customizable design.
How come I can't say that with an Apple device? All right, go ahead.
Well, Apple offers multiple colors. They have space gray. They have the standard extruded aluminum, or whatever is it, anodized aluminum look that everybody copies.
Yes.
And
possibly more.
USB, it just leads to waste.
AMD wants to make it easier for you. I know they've had some confusion about branding with their mobile parts in the 7000 series, which are not all Zen 4. A lot of them are Zen 3, and there's, I think, even some Zen 2 stuff. But if you want a laptop with Zen 4, it's easy. Just look for an orange sticker. Yes, they have fixed everything because Ryzen 7000 series processors that have a Zen 4 CPU core, look for the orange stickers for the newest, fastest AMD processor technology. 7040 and 7045 series with the orange sticker. Now, there is orange on the other sticker, but it is predominantly kind of a slate gray. Forget about that. This one has a gray border, but the inside of the logo is all orange. And there's white lettering. It's not confusing at all.
So look for the orange with the gray and not the gray with the orange.
Right, yeah. If you see orange, you're like, oh, it's orange. Like, no. That's just their design language for Ryzen, where it's like this ring of fire that goes from orange to red. And then in the corner, it says 5, 7, or 9, also in orange. But if the entire label is mostly orange, I guess just look for the one without the ring. It might be easier.
Unless you have the Johnny Cash burger, then you'll experience the ring of fire.
The alternative to just looking for the orange label is this. And if you're listening, it's one of those ridiculously convoluted things where every number has a meaning and it doesn't necessarily correspond to what you think it does.
Oh, 3 and 4 mean 3.
Well,
5 and 6 mean 5.
Remember feature isolation? Okay, the fourth digit from the left is feature isolation if needed. A 0 or a 5 will appear in this column.
Oh, you lost me.
Could you not do binary 0, 1?
Now,
I don't understand.
Understand the market segmentation here. Market segment is the second digit from the left. And if it is for example, if it's a 3, that means it's a Ryzen 3. But if it's a 4, that also means
it's a Ryzen 3.
Yes.
Sure.
But if it's a 5, it means it's a Ryzen 5. That makes sense.
Okay.
6 also means Ryzen 5.
Oh, okay.
But then they have one.
I'm seeing a pattern.
The 8 could be a 7 or a 9. They don't know.
Sure.
But the 9 is always a 9.
But the 8 is not an 8. Definitely, it's
No, there's no 8. There's no Ryzen 8. Get out of here with that
8.
Ryzen 8.
But is this still correct on the third Tuesday of the second month of the year?
It depends on barometric pressure.
Is it a leap year or not, Josh?
I sense that you're lying right now. That's what I sense. It's
That
all
hurts.
lies.
I don't understand why they can't just do like 5 for Ryzen 5. Like it's the 7550, so it's like a mid-tier Ryzen 5 in the 7000 series. That makes sense.
Because they know that Intel has 54 different SKUs and they've got to differentiate them somehow.
Yeah.
I think
Because they want
could
to
this be
match-
jealousy. It's jealousy.
It is. They want 55 SKUs.
They have
You can only use
digit
so many
envy.
numbers.
Real quick, there's a PR announcement from AMD that came down yesterday. They have named a new senior vice president and general manager of computing and graphics. Rick Bergman, who's the current one, is retiring.
Who is in no relation whatsoever to Star Trek.
Not Rick Berman of Paramount.
Oh,
Rick Bergman of AMD is retiring. And Jack, and I believe is a Vietnamese.
I'm pretty
family
sure
name.
it's Huynh.
Huynh.
Pretty sure it'll be Huynh.
Huynh is going to be the new SVP and general manager of computing and graphics. So I don't know if that will affect anything, but I guess it's worth noting there's been a leadership change. Not as big as maybe Raja leaving Intel, but AMD had to copy that too. Had to have a SVP change. Next up, here's a story from Bleeping Computer, and we're not even in Security Corner, or are we? Is this Security Corner? This is Security Corner.
You know
IRS
what?
authorized efile.com tax return software caught serving JavaScript malware. Fantastic.
It's just
For
in
like
time
2
for
weeks?
tax season. As they point out, and as Jeremy just mentioned, for a couple of weeks, efile.com was serving the breakfast of champions from a malware perspective, and that would be a JavaScript file that prompted you to do something stupid. And that prompt was, oh my gosh, there's an SSL error on this site. Please click here to resolve. And that was an invitation to get your system freaking hijacked with a customized payload that varied depending on whether you're running Firefox or Chrome or what have you. It's nice that the spammers and the hackers have gotten to the sophistication point that they'll deliver a customized payload based on your browser, which is nice. So after they delivered that, they basically are installing a backdoor on your box for later exploitation, which is really great. The weird thing about this is the security researchers on this made fun of the fact that it was a PHP payload to a Windows botnet. Have we sunk to a certain level that our security researchers are encouraging the hackers to up their game from a coding perspective? I'm just not sure that that's where we want to go, is to have the malware researchers saying, "Oh, this is terrible. I can't believe you guys coded this. This sucks." You really need to be bringing it here. I just don't.
But
know
as a
if that's
professional,
need to be saying this.
you kind you kind of have that personal pride of like, seriously, guys, this is what I've spent all my time on.
It's still an effective working backdoor.
Oh, it is. But every Sherlock wants their Moriarty. I mean, the rest of us don't, but they do.
So what you're saying is the security researchers really want to meet their match, and this payload really wasn't up to their expectations. They're like, oh, I can't believe that they went to something so common. It's like it's the cheap.
There's nothing of worse
exploitations.
There's nothing worse than a board security researcher, because to entertain themselves, they might flip their bit over to the other side.
Anyway, it's just a wonder of computing nature that it was efile.com at the time of tax filing season, and I can't imagine the number of people that fell for this. It must be astronomically, stupidly huge.
Please install this security certificate from random.org.
Well, I got to file my taxes, so I guess I'll have to say yes.
I guess I have to say yes, yeah.
Yeah, up here in Canada, we're low tech. It's just a bunch of people texting and phoning people. Yeah, this is CRA, and you owe us a whole bunch of money. Please get a whole bunch of iTunes cards together, or Amazon gift cards together. And sadly, they still fall for it.
They do. And I feel like I want to bring the stories out here that continue to kind of move the security target around. I had another one that was for HP printers, just to show that just nothing is immune to getting freaking wedged and exploiting.
Can the story with printers get any worse than they have in the last few years? Like DRM cartridges, region locked cartridges.
Do you have any idea how to deploy printers over Intune securely? Because I sure as hell don't.
Well, HP had a firmware that was exploitable for some period of time. They insist it was only a short period of time. It doesn't matter. Anyway, just more stupidity.
That was Security Corner. Only one story this week, so we can move on to...
Let's go to gaming. It's much better.
Story at videocards.com. Now, NVIDIA has published a video, a technology comparison between full raster mode without ray tracing and, of course, ray tracing DLSS 3 with the new Cyberpunk Overdrive mode. Now, they're showing that with a 4090 at 4K, DLSS off but ray tracing on, frame rates as low as 16 FPS. We're talking with an RTX 4090. Now, I know it's at 4K. I know it's ray traced.
It says 4090 Ti. Is there a 4090 Ti?
No, they're saying where is the 4090 Ti?
No, where is the 4090 Ti?
Now, with the 4090 Ti, that could be as high as 18, maybe even 19 frames per second. So that's something.
Yeah.
Anyway, but with the magic of DLSS 3, where I think you're only rendering 1 out of every 12 pixels that you're seeing on your screen. It's pretty remarkable because you go up to 127 frames per second.
Yeah, interpolation is magic.
Your car changes color.
That's
the
what it
scenes
is.
are different. I wish it was the same scene because one of them it's like a shadowy road, and the other one it's like a main street and it's bright sunlight. But
yeah, it's almost like they're
best case scenario
trying to do something here.
Here we go. Here's the same scene: 34 frames per second versus 138 frames per second. DLSS off versus on.
Some of the scenes, the difference was actually pretty remarkable for a game that already looks pretty damn amazing.
But it's almost impossible to give you the impression of what ray tracing looks at in a still.
Yeah, you need to see a video. Next in gaming quick hits, Everspace 2.
Woohoo! Launches tomorrow.
Coming? Oh wait, it's already out. It was released January 18, 2021. Why are we talking about it now?
It goes from early access to actually launching tomorrow.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
For $50.
And so I grabbed the demo, and I mean, hey, it is, as someone described, Diablo in space. You're collecting new weapons, new ships, new everything. It's not a flight sim. It's perfectly happy with mouse and keyboard if you want, but you can also jump into the cockpit and pull out the HOTAS, and it works just fine. Although they need to work on their mapping a bit, because my X52 did not agree with any of the stuff that they had for the pre-mapped stuff. So yeah, it's out tomorrow. It's silly. It's relaxing if you like to fly around space and shoot a bunch of things and collect things. I'm I've gone from, I have a vague memory of them talking about this to, oh, hey, I'm looking forward to a launch tomorrow. And hey, demo. Give it a shot. If you hate it, you hate
Nice.
it. If you don't, because demos are great.
That's why every game should have a demo. Although they probably don't want that because you might not like the game and then you won't buy it. Jeremy, are you ready?
Nope.
Make sure you stretch. Get a drink of water. Because it's time for a Jeremy SSD review. Jeremy Malventano. Makes his
It's
debut.
definitely not a Malventano view.
No? Is it because of the white balance? Is it because, wait, is this like, am I looking at Romex? Is this old work?
Oh, yes. No, we had some interesting plumbing issues, and I just had a shot to sort of highlight
That's where
the
you took the
box.
photo? Inside of a wall with 12.2 Romex behind you.
Yeah. It's not
Okay.
really inside a wall. It's just where the wall used to be.
I see. So we're looking at the
And
studs.
does it not bring
how
out
did
the
you
picture
hang it
very
there?
nicely?
This
Yeah,
is
how did
definitely
you-
Canadian.
Did you glue it? Did you use a piece of gum? And just like stick
I
it?
did not. There wasn't even any duct tape involved.
How did you do it? Just wedged it in there?
Artistic endeavoring.
Okay. I won't even
No, it's
ask.
just sort of propped between a nail and the top of the 2x4 there. He says it's
Here's
like a
what really
1x2.
happened. Jeremy was sitting on the toilet and he was holding the SSD and he's like, you know what? I could just take a picture with my phone right now. I'll just
Oh no,
crop
my
it
toilet
up.
looks worse than that.
Oh, okay.
You really don't want to see that.
Oh, all right. Yeah, no
That's
toilet pics.
behind the washing machine.
Yeah. Oh, wait. It says right here, definitely not a Malventano review. We just lack the drives.
Oh,
Yeah. I think you lack.
stop.
I lack
Well done.
a lot more than just the drives to do a Malventano review.
You know, going back.
Yeah,
to
yeah.
the
I also
wall,
lack the drive.
Did you see the picture of the Geek Squad who mounted the guy's TV through the descending sewer pipe?
No.
Yes.
no.
Oh God. Yes, I did. Oh.
That looks like a stud.
Well, it sort of does, but not really.
Why does it smell so bad in our living room?
Oh my God! I just looked it up right now.
Was it the stink
Oh yeah,
pipe?
no,
Like the
it's
vent pipe?
truly horrific.
You can see the drywall still between the mount and the backing. You know, I'm wondering if they used
Oh, they did it
sensitive-
blind. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So
Oh, you
he
think?
then cut away. He then cut the drywall away to see exactly what had happened.
Why
here, and
something was leaking back there? Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll give him props for the drywall cut. That is our nice, dry, clean drywall cut. Well,
Yeah.
there's a little bit of
Yeah.
wobble on that side, but yeah, it's just seriously.
It's easy enough to fix. I mean, it's PVC. Put some
Yeah.
new stuff in there.
Yeah, just cut it off and bond it.
You know, but make them pay for the plumber to come in and do that, of course. All right.
I don't know if I'd want that plumber back in my house.
No, Geek Squad
not
did it.
plumber.
I got the Geek Squad back in my
Yeah,
house.
no,
I
no.
don't want them in my house to begin with, but
I'm sure dealing with Best Buy corporate on an issue like that is a joy.
Yeah. I'm sorry.
did you buy the
what?
extended warranty?
I don't understand. Did he not mount the TV for you? And somebody in a call center in who knows what country? No.
Does it work or not?
Yeah.
Was it solid?
No,
Yeah. Did it? Was the TV
Well,
mounted? when it was
solids. came
no,
out.
it's pretty liquid.
All right, let's get back on topic. Jeremy.
Yes, this is the most wonderful introduction for SK Hynix ever. So it was offered that the brand new SK Hynix Platinum P41, the newer generation of the four NVMe PCIe 4.0 drives, was offered to me for review. And I've been doing Rocket, which is one of the first ones to come out. And it's been thoroughly and completely abused. So my thought was not so much to emulate AL and designing custom workloads and having a pristine system and showing you exactly what this drive is capable of in the perfect conditions. I was thinking more that, no, really, what's the difference between a really beat up PCIe 4.0 original generation drive, the Cyberpunk Rocket, versus a brand new one? because the stats are definitely different. The P41 is offering up to sorry, I'm just falling behind myself here. Oh, did I not even write it down? Am I not a silly person here? 7,000 megabytes a second for reads or writes, and just under 5 for writes. The old one, it was sort of rated for about 6,500 tops, and the writes floating around 5,000. So when you're looking at a drive, you could copy hundreds of small files back and forth. You could reinstall your Steam library from scratch. You could, try and process this video, as Sebastian has to do all the time.
Did you clean install Windows before running these tests, Jeremy, or were you lazy?
Well, this is the thing, is that this is the point, is there are values in seeing, and I did do the test on this with a clean install, because I was going to clone over the old one, but my Windows install had definitely gained some personality and was just definitely not stable. So in order to test, what I did was just benchmark the old Windows install on the Sabrent and do everything testing. Then, because you can't really I'm not going to do a fresh install on it, I disabled every service that I possibly could in Windows. And, there's a few that keep popping back up and coming back down and popping back up. But hey, so I get a rough idea of a base. And then with with the SK Hynix P41, Platinum P41, I went for the fresh install, did a couple of benchmarks, and then I just dumped everything back on it. And so I did all my benchmarks with Steam running, with Epic running, with Discord running, Slack running, everything in the background. Because that's how you use your computer, right? You don't buy a brand new SSD and say, I'm never going to use this except in the most pristine of conditions. You're just going to abuse it, like we all do. One of the biggest things was that the difference between a 1 terabyte drive that you don't take care of your game collection on versus a 2 terabyte drive, it's big. The extra empty NAND has a huge impact on performance. The new generation of PCIe 4.0 controllers also does have a difference, because when you looked at some of my benchmarks on the Sabrent, the difference was huge. Windows background tasks, whatever they're doing, really, really have an impact on what you're trying to do. And because it can, Windows will reindex your drive. It will start firing up this other process. It will decide to virus scan in the middle of no reason at all. With the P41, it really didn't have an impact. And, boot times, it's hard to benchmark because, you're sitting there with a stopwatch trying to do it.
Yeah.
So I'm trying to come up with, what is a thing? Well, I could benchmark the load time of games, except one small problem. All you do is have to sit there and hit on shift and escape and enter to try and get through all of their movies and their... But if from within the game, if you're just doing save games, well, now there's an interesting thing. And so that's sort of what I did for the most of it. It was like, and Terra Invicta, which is a pre-release game, but the load times on it kill you. It's almost a minute. It's over a minute and a half. It's approaching 2 minutes. And so I was really hoping that I'd see a huge difference on it. I did a little bit, but as I mentioned earlier in the podcast, it seems that a lot of game developers aren't quite aware of the extra bandwidth and the fact that they don't have to put certain timeouts that I think are in the games because they're waiting for other things to catch up. Historically, they needed to be. With this sort of speed, they don't. The only other major one I saw was Humankind, which shaved off, a good 20-25%, going from 20 seconds to 13.8. Scorn, didn't care. 29.2 versus 29.8 is margin of error. So the thing is, if you can find it at a decent price, the brand new generation of PCIe 4.0 will give you a slight benefit. It's not going to give you a huge benefit. Arguably, it's not going to give you a 3 cent per gig benefit. But the thing is that the prices have come down so much that you're honestly going to find price parity at PCIe 4.0 and 3.0. It's going to make a bit of a difference. It's not going to be life-changing. It's not going to be like going from your old SATA SSD to an NVMe drive. But it is going to make a slight difference. And it's much lower power. There is no bloody active cooling on it, because I don't see the jump from PCIe 4.0 to 5.0 drives actually being worth it. Because if this is the amount of difference that I'm seeing from a 3.0 to an early generation 4.0 to a later generation 4.0, the 5.0s are not going to offer anything much more than that tiny little percentage gain.
Well, they'll offer a lot more noise.
And they're going to be loud.
And heat, too. They'll warm your room up a little bit more.
Yeah, so I don't know. I can see if you're shopping around right now, and it's only like a 1 cent a gigabyte difference, go for the newer generation. Platinum P41 or one of the newer controllers is worth it at price parity. But if you're looking at spending an extra, 30%, yeah, it's kind of hard to argue. And things that I did was make sure that all this is in the U.S. prices.
Well, speaking of U.S. prices, by the way, look at Amazon in the U.S. for that 2 terabyte Platinum P41.
Beautiful.
$156.99.
Yeah, it was $243.
Yeah, that's the list price.
No.
It says was $253.94. Now $156.99.
Yeah, seriously, at that price, you're Josh, help me on the math here.
You are at
75?
7.5 cents per.
Yeah, 75 cents. 7.5 cents a gigabyte.
It's better than Ryan's Law.
Buy that. Buy that immediately if you see that.
I must point out that the previous generation P31 2 terabyte is $121 right now.
Yeah, but you don't.
You probably won't. You won't notice much of a difference.
Well, I will.
Yeah,
okay.
but you'll notice $20 worth.
The Platinum P41, because I've done some testing with it too, in comparison to other SSDs, it does quite well in certain, like beyond just the throughput. Like obviously a Gen 4, and it's a faster controller, but it does hold up quite well in different, more like real world scenarios. The kind of stuff where like Jeremy's chart is showing you, actually you can see a measurable difference in game loading times at times, things like that. It is a snappy drive. And that's why the Solidigm stuff is so impressive, because it's the same thing. The Solidigm P44 Pro.
Yes.
It's the same hardware platform. It's just different firmware, and they have their own driver. But this platform is excellent. This Hynix platform is fantastic.
Well, I mean, one of the benefits that SK Hynix has is they design the whole damn thing.
Yeah.
True.
The DDR is theirs. The NAND is theirs. I wouldn't be surprised if they did the board as well. 5-year warranty, nice. Free migration software. And yeah, I mean, literally when it's selling for almost half the price is what I reviewed it as, it's seriously a good deal. Don't blow the extra $20 if you can. But as we're going to say in Canada, and hopefully that's changed as well, it was $514.
Uh-huh.
We're down to $341.
Oh, good.
Still a tough sell, but.
And you can get that crucial P3 Plus 4 terabyte that it often goes on sale for around $220.
Yeah.
And that's DRAMless, but gaming drive is going to be pretty reasonable.
Yeah, I mean, the only other one I had to test was the 660p, and even that's got a cache on it, so it wasn't designed to write, but if it's not a system drive, it's actually pretty happy.
It is now time for our featured review of the week. It is the Phanteks EVOLV Shift XT. Is that right?
That's correct. Yeah, like most of the Evolve line, or all of the Evolve line, this is an aluminum outer shell chassis. It is ventilated. This is a small form factor. It's built for SFF power supplies, or SFX power supplies, and ITX motherboards. An interesting thing about this chassis is it's expandable. You can configure it in multiple ways. You can have the sort of the top clamshell piece mounted all the way down, have no fans in the system, and just be using the fans of the graphics card and the CPU. You can raise it up to the middle setting, use two 25 or 30 millimeter fans in it at that point. It's really best to set them up as exhaust. And that's actually my favorite configuration on this case. It does a great job just with two fans at the top, exhausting the hot air created by the CPU and the GPU. It has mesh panels that will fit down in, like you see there. Those are removable. For most people, I think I would probably leave them in just for the dust filtering aspect of them. They're pretty fine. They don't hurt the temperatures too much on the GPU. There is a little bit of a measurable difference on the CPU temps, though. I did find, but yeah, it's a really well built case. Again, it's all extruded aluminum on the outer shell, and just another quality piece from Phanteks, really. In the Evolve line, the front panels are the top one is magnetic. You just pull it off, and then you can release the top with two clips and adjust the top however you want. It's also how you access the inside. Building in it's a breeze because you basically remove the entire outer shell, and your fan mounts, everything to get to a completely open chassis inside. It's one of the easiest ITX cases I've built in because it does just open up completely.
Hey, I'm glad you got a manicure before you took pictures. That was really really keen. Look at that. Okay, maybe you should get your money back.
Not a manicure. That's scissors and teeth.
You just naturally look that way.
No, it's a sandwich style layout, which means the motherboard and the graphics card are on facing opposite sides of the PC.
That's like the Dan cases, right?
It is like the Dan cases.
Really, but the Dan cases, you can't do this. Like in this picture, you can see what Kent is talking about. You can literally take the whole chassis, like the frame, out of the extruded aluminum shell, and then do your build on that. This piece now, which looks a lot like the inside of the A4 SFX. But
yeah, and actually, the only complaint I have about this chassis is that Phanteks actually could have made this smaller by having panels that fit more tightly against that inner shell. A lot of the SFF community sort of thought this case was too big, but it's really it's all the outer shell that's the cause of its size. There's probably a 1/2 inch front and rear each, and another 1/2 inch on the sides that could have been eliminated. And the small form factor community, they're all about those leaders. And if they just made the outer shell smaller, it would have gotten down to those tiny little capacities that they like to see.
Was it necessary, do you think, to make it expandable like it is? Like the actual structure being...
I don't think it was. Like I say, I think that this case is probably best in most situations, the way I think most people are going to use it is going to be with 2 fans at the top as exhaust in the medium configuration. In the smaller configuration, if you're running a pretty low powered system, you can get away with it. I mean, my temperatures were not outlandish even with a 12600K, which granted it's not the most powerful CPU, but it does produce some heat, and a 3080 12 gig in the other side. And the temperatures were reasonable even with no fans. There was still a lot of hot air just coming out of the system. With the 2 Phanteks T30 fans that I used as exhaust, it did a fantastic job. It just basically just pulled the heat out. It was pulling cool air in from the sides. You could actually feel air moving into the case from the sides. And those fans were, I think, only running 800 RPM, if I recall.
That's these fans right here.
That's those fans right there.
Okay.
And those will spin up to 3,000, but I actually found them at 800 RPM to be a completely tolerable noise level. When you're gaming, the power supply in an SFX system is actually going to be probably the loudest component. But yeah, that configuration did excellent in the temperature testing for both the CPU and the GPU. A lot of people that have bought this case are using it with a 240 AIO in the top. And I don't think that that's actually the best use of this case. I feel like if you're putting a radiator in the top, one, you're making the case another stage larger. You're taking it to its largest configuration. But if you're using an AIO on the CPU, you're going to benefit to the temps of the CPU, but you're actually going to hurt the air flow out of the case from the graphics card. So you're going to trap more of the hot air in on that side. Granted, and alternatively, if you were using a hybrid cooled graphics card, you're going to prevent the heat from the CPU from escaping very well. I think if you're going to do an AI, that's probably your best bet, though, because the CPU is not going to be pulling as much power in a gaming chassis as the GPU is. Then, of course, there's maniacs who decide to do a full closed loop system in it with a 240 radiator on both. And the temperatures are reasonable, but honestly, I built that sort of as a challenge to myself. I actually think the performance would be just as good in the medium configuration with the air cooler I used and the graphics card with its stock heatsink on it.
By the way, speaking of graphics cards, before we go into the thermal results, let's talk about graphics card power connector clearance. So you have some pictures in here, and it
Yes.
looks like conventional graphics cards with the 8 pins. Even those, I mean, what is this bar here? Is that if it was in its lowest configuration?
That card was used for just testing and showing. That's a 3070 Ti for the Win 3, which is a wider card than standard width. And when you do that, it does extend into the upper part of the chassis. And if you've got fans up there, you're going to have a problem. If you're using the lowest configuration, you're going to have to smush them down, and you might run into issues with that. The two 180 adapters fit just fine, though, in that configuration, gave plenty of clearance. If you're using a standard...
How about PWR 12V?
So...
Now remember, be very careful about this.
You
because
can't even fit the stinking video card.
You don't want to be liable for somebody, trying to put it in, and they're a millimeter away from the correct arc to keep it from pulling itself out
So
when it wasn't
there
clipped
would
in
be.
properly?
So I have two cards here with the 12 or the 16 pin connector now. I did not have when I took those photos.
Okay.
But in just sort of gauging things since I built that system, the biggest problem you're going to see if you try to put a 4080 or a 4090 that are, because they're all wider than a standard width card. The 3080 12 gig, the PNY that you see in the photos of the system, is a standard width card, and there's no clearance problem. The 4080s and 49ers or 4090s are the same width as that 3070 Ti, but there's two issues. The PCB is much shorter, and where the plug sits is outside of the gap that they've allotted for the power cords to flow through. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because the PCBs on the new cards are so short. So you'd have to be really creative. The plugs are very long. I have gotten a hold of two of the new Cable Mod 180 adapters for the 16 pin. By the way, those are very good quality, and they do free up a lot of room, but they would not work in this case unless you had a card that had a longer than normal PCB, because of where the plug is in relation to the gap for the pass through of the cables.
Well, in fairness to Phanteks, this case was designed and announced and released before the RTX 40 series cards launched with the 12-volt high power.
Yes.
So, unfortunately, if you want to go down that road, you want to buy that big Founders Edition 40 series, might not be the case.
But you could use one of the 7000 XTX cards or XT cards, and you shouldn't have any problem, really.
And looking at your build, I can tell from the color scheme that obviously this is an AMD Radeon build, right?
No, there's no AMD in there.
He doesn't buy AMD GPUs. That would just sully his collection behind his head.
Now, can you change? You can obviously change the color at any time, right? Is that clear, or did you actually use red coolant?
I used red coolant.
Oh, wow.
In that.
Okay, you're really locked in.
Yes. And I actually, to be honest, after I took the photos of the complete system, I discovered I actually liked the way the system looks without the LEDs on inside the build area and just with the red coolant. But yeah, as far as the build quality goes, it's like all the other Phanteks EVOLV cases I've seen. It's absolutely a rock solid case. They probably could have added maybe another row of the perforations or the airflow holes in the bottom clamshell and top clamshell, especially on the top. And I don't know if on the top they didn't add more because of that bend in it, if they thought it might weaken it too much. But as it is, it still gets good ventilation.
Speaking of bends, these CPU card line bends are on point. Look at that. It goes parallel with the case perfectly and then bends down nicely, matching the bend on the return here at the CPU block. Very nicely done.
He's an artiste, which is, you know what French for artist is.
This is the infinity mirror on the front here. Is that what this effect is?
Yes.
This is a nice
actually,
looking build.
all the LEDs inside that are controlled by the Phanteks controller. I didn't connect any of them to the motherboard, so they change based on the functions in the case itself. And one of the reasons why I waited so long on that review is I got my hands on the case probably the middle of last year, but I had heard Phanteks was working on a display that replaces the front infinity mirror, so you can put monitoring graphs or whatever else you want on it. It'll just function as a second screen. And I really wanted to add that on there, and I waited and I waited and I waited, and it still isn't out today. Although they said it's coming soon in January at CES. So anyway, I went ahead and finished it and wrote the review up at that point, and I'm glad I did. It's a nice case. I enjoyed working in it. SFF systems are it's a two-way thing. You've got the benefit of having these nice small cases that you can put wherever you want, but it's actually sort of a fun challenge to build into. Even if you're just building a normal system, it's really fun to build in a small form factor case, because it sort of challenges you to look at things like cable management in a completely new light. So yeah, I enjoyed it. I liked the case. The temperatures were completely well managed, even with no fans.
And let's see. This is your simulated gaming performance. You did a gaming workload. Was something like a half hour? Yeah, 30 minutes. Marvel's Guardians of the Galaxy. 1080 Ultra, ray trace lighting reflections on DLSS quality, and the temperatures are fine. We're talking about
absolutely
40s to around 64 for the CPU temp, and then GPU temps under 60 for the most part.
Right. Now those are above ambient.
I see.
Ambient was ambient was 23.5 in all the tests. And so you with no additional fans, you do get up there on both the CPU and GPU, but it's still not to the point of terrible throttling.
Which obviously you did experience with that really thin fractal ridge in the horizontal position, because it doesn't get
in the horizontal position. There were some problems with that in the horizontal position, but I really I still like that case in the vertical configuration.
But isn't that another example though of that fine line with small form factor? When you get it really small, really compact, then there are occasionally compromises as far as not just cable management or component clearance, but thermals as well, unless it's just like mesh on both sides. You have adequate clearance under it, because that thing, you had to add your own feet to the ridge
if
even
you
have
wanted
it
to
work in a horizontal position.
Yes. So the one thing, and I actually just discovered this, that I was not aware of when I did the test on that fractal case, the PCI expansion card that allows you to plug the graphics card into the other side on that case is only 3.0. And I was not aware of that when I tested the case, and I didn't see it in any of their literature at the time. But it is only a 3.0 riser. This case, the riser cable is a 4.0. But as we said earlier in the show, there's very little difference. But if you've got an X570 system and an AM4 3000 or 5000 series processor, and you put a PCIe Gen5 card in there on you have to go into the BIOS and change it manually to PCI 3. So
really, at this price, because you're saying it's 165 lists or so, 169.
169 list.
But it goes on sale from time to time for what, like 150?
I have actually seen it regularly at under 150.
This is an awfully nice looking case, especially when you consider it has the extruded aluminum like outside paneling, and it is. I mean, not with a hardline build like this, but it should be pretty easy to build them. You can just take the inner frame out and do your build on that.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That'd be lovely.
Somebody who was who had sort of familiarized themselves with how to disassemble that case, and if they had the parts laid out and selected, you could literally build a system in 15 minutes in that case. You can take it apart quickly. If you've already got the cooler mounted on the motherboard, which I do highly recommend before you mount the motherboard in any ITX case, you could just mount it, and the hardest thing will be just tucking power cables away.
Yeah. And it's not always easy, even if it is modular, because there's still going to be some extra unless you're using custom cables.
Right.
A small form factor, it looks so cool when it's all done, but it is such a pain to build, especially the really tiny ones.
Especially with this one, I picture my cats trying to crawl inside that because it's not fully blocked off.
Well, that's why you put the mesh.
You can put that is with the mesh panels out. They will not fit in.
Okay,
there are mesh panels.
There are anti-cat panels. They're installed.
Yeah, I could not use them with the hardline build because I could actually probably use the one on the CPU side, but on the power supply side or on the graphics card side, the reservoir pump combo sticks out just a little too far to mount that there. But
and what was your final verdict?
Oh, it's a gold.
Gold.
It's a gold. If it had
gold, Jerry, gold.
If it had
it only comes in black and silver.
If it had just a little more ventilation, and they had made the outside just a little smaller, to hit those lower leader numbers, it would have been a editor's choice with no doubt.
Very nice. Thank you for the review. And definitely check out the review online. There's a website that's a companion to our podcast. It's PCPer.com. It's really where it all started because the podcast came later. But, before YouTube, people read reviews online, and they're
weird.
I know for a fact, because I put this review into the system, Kent was kind enough to send me 55 images.
Whew.
In raw format.
That's
gigabyte.
That's kind
stuff that he sent me. Video clips too, which I can use as B-roll. But
so is that enough?
I feel like it's more than enough. I feel like he more than just started a picture.
Well, I sent you.
Well done, Kent. Well
Josh did not send enough. I was struggling to fill the review with pictures with Josh. I'm like, I guess I could put one.
That's part of the problem, though, with a case that has multiple configurations.
And really,
you have to show it.
You didn't even show half of what you did because I don't see any hardline build photos. There were just those hardline build video clips. So I've got to try to figure out what to do to really showcase the entire experience. I could take still images from the video clips and then add them to the review and have 110 pictures instead.
Link them to our YouTube channel.
Yeah. So, but by the way, the build, we didn't really talk about this, but look at this collection of components. Like Kent just goes all out.
What do you do for a living again, Kent?
Make lots of money, apparently.
Yeah, apparently.
Yeah.
I'm a bum.
Oh, okay.
Hey, no taxes. No taxes for that. Let's move to picks of the week. Josh, please. Get us
okay. A friend of mine's probably going to buy this Micro Center. They still have the big, like 33% off motherboard AMD combo. So it's a 650 motherboard, full size. AM5 Ryzen 7 7700X and 32 gigs of that pretty good G-Skill memory.
Of the sweet spot.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure what BIOS is installed in there, so hopefully when this guy gets it, it will be able to use. I did warn him that he would be expecting a 15-minute to 30-minute first boot for memory training.
Yeah, do not do any overclocking of any kind on that memory until you.
But for less than $500 for all that, It's a pretty solid deal.
That is awesome. Under 500. And in fact, if I go to my local Micro Center, which is only 3 hours away, I could have it ready in 18 minutes.
So close.
I
You
can't
might
even drive
not-
to Madison Heights in 18 minutes. I can do it in like 3 hours and 18 minutes if I take the back.
Well, see if you can get a discount for the 3 hours and 18 minutes then.
Yeah. It's a savings of $253.30. It's in-store
It's not
only,
bad.
right? You can't just order it online.
Yep.
Why? Why, Micro Center? Because they want those attachment sales. They want you to get in
Yeah,
there
but 33% off. I mean,
and
come
buy
on.
more stuff.
I'll just drive down to Denver.
Yeah, do it.
It's only what $40 a gas. So yeah,
Yeah.
still worth it.
Cheap. All right, Jeremy.
I don't have a Micro Center. There are no Micro Centers in Canada, so
Is that why you're going
I
with
can't pick
retro
that.
tech? Because you can't buy new tech in Canada. You've got to make the most of
no,
what
it's
you've
true.
got.
I'm not even sure that Josh has a Voodoo 1 within arm's reach. But my pick is the ability, because when the Voodoo 1 came out, and hey, you might remember supply chain issues. It only had 4 megs of memory on board. The chipset could handle 8, but it was just too expensive to try and put on that extra 4. But the thing was that there was actually space for it, and the chip could address it. And so there is now a project that you can tech out, which allows you to add the missing 4 megs of memory to your Voodoo 1. You can get the full 8 megs of glorious stuff. And if you can't afford the 8, hey, there's a mod for just adding 6 megs.
Wouldn't it be
So there
easier to
you
just get a Voodoo 2 at that point? Or I guess I'm missing something here.
Where are you going to find the Voodoo
Do you know
2?
how much a Quantum 3D 8 meg Voodoo 1 card is?
100?
Originally out of my price range, and now I'm pretty sure it's really out of my price range.
Yeah.
Yeah, they keep getting higher.
But that's
and
why they
higher.
did SLI. And I don't mean Scanline Interleaf.
Some lucky individual.
Oh, no, when you used to be able to chain, guess it was Voodoo 2, where you're able to chain the two of them together.
Man, Voodoo 2s are starting to get
SLI.
really expensive.
Yeah, scan line Interleaf.
Here's one for $298. Buy it now. 200, 244. Oh, here's that Obsidian, that Quantum 3D Obsidian 2. I tweeted about this. I think somebody's using the
Yeah, the 16 meg.
listing. This is a Japanese seller. Wants $2,000 for it. Yeah, these are not cheap. Man, $18 just for the pass-through cable. Come on.
Oh, yeah.
Diamond Monster 3D, 3DFX Voodoo 2, 12 megs, $600. That's
That
for
was the
card.
one.
That's for one card.
That was the one I had.
Just get this. I mean, they want 100. Okay, forget that. They want $183 almost for shipping. On a PC.
Well, yeah, because it comes with a whole freaking
Well,
Optiplex.
Yeah, well, I mean, and the $20.
Just shuck the case. Just
bump.
send me the bloody card.
Exactly. There's the diamond. I have a Diamond Monster 3D Voodoo 2 card.
I've got 2 creatives downstairs.
Oh crap! No, mine's a creative. My Diamond Monster 3D is my original Voodoo. You have 2
I've got the
creative Voodoo
Overdrive
2s.
I do, with the over-the-top connector and the... yeah,
You're sitting on a gold
Through the
mine,
back.
Josh.
I am. It's gold, Jerry. Gold.
Gold. That's twice. Twice tonight.
Yep. Twice I said that.
Brett, do you want to give us a pick?
I sure do. I'm all about the power, and I'm all about bringing the power. And when power goes on sale, I'm going to suggest you buy some.
Wait, is this one of those
So-
power strips with like 150 outlets that plugs into one outlet?
No, those
Okay.
I love those though. I do want more. Look, I've done a lot of power things, a lot of battery things. This is a combined one of those. It's a 41% off portable power station from Jackery, buying on Amazon. Now, I did happen to notice that, unfortunately, the sale does end in a couple of hours. I know. I didn't.
By the
see
time
that
you
right
hear
away.
this, unless you're watching us live, this sale
know.
is
And that's
over.
why you should watch us live.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Wednesday
this
nights,
is-
10 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time, I guess.
It's an advantage to watch live. So this is a 240 watt hour lithium battery pack with 110 volt outputs and USB. There may be other brands that do this a little bit better. My understanding is that the Jackery brand has been pretty good to people. And this particular power station is 41% off. Normally it's like almost $300. So it's $175 right now. Looks like a good deal.
Yeah, buy it now. 2 hours and 31 minutes remain.
Yeah. Sorry about that.
There'll be
I
another sale.
didn't notice that there was only 2 hours left initially, or it was like 5 hours, I guess, by the time I first looked at it.
Yeah, no. Is the solar power on the back of it, or is it?
Yeah, you can
Something you plug
pin
in.
the solar. You can pin the solar power to the we'll sell us accessory panels, and it'll fit a variety of their power stations, including this one. I'm fairly certain of that.
So the charger is sold separately.
Correct. The panels
Okay.
are a completely separate unit, which is actually more than this power station.
Shocking.
I saw what you did there.
Yeah.
Clever.
Kent, you have a pick for us.
I do have a pick. This may have been picked by Brett a couple of times over the last year, but it's something that is back on sale. This is a Klipsch reference cinema. It's Dolby Atmos. So it's a
Yeah, I have these-
5.1.4 system.
Yeah.
This retails at $9.99. If you look at it in the cart, it's $3.48.
Are you kidding me?
Whoa.
No.
Yeah, I have this set.
You know, I
It's,
I
great.
saw that today, and I was thinking, maybe I should get it with, get the 30-day return, see how it sounds. And I thought packing all that crap back up to return, it just. But still, if you want, Atmos, decent
This
sound.
could be your living room, Josh. Look at this beautiful lifestyle
make
photo.
Your ears bleed. Tweeters to make your ears bleed. Then go
And
with
those
these.
upward, like angled top firing Atmos to
Atmos.
bounce that
Yeah.
sound off your ceiling and just make you just feel so immersed.
I just took a look. This is not actually the set that I have. I think I have the previous generation of this.
Oh, maybe it's time for an upgrade.
Yeah, I think the one you
I
had
know.
was it Atmos?
I don't think
was
it
your-
was.
Yeah, so
I'll see if I can find it.
but
How do those tweeters sound?
so
I like mine. They sound good. I play video games with them though, so
I think
it's not critical listening.
about 3 or 4 years ago, Klipsch mellowed out their horn-loaded
Yeah.
tweeters on most of their mainstream stuff because they were getting a lot of people who were very sad that their eyeballs were bleeding from the cymbal crashes. But yeah,
You need that as you get older, though. That's the thing. Because as you lose those other frequencies, you need the overbearing treble. So it sounds right.
They're $900 in Canada. I'm sad. That would have been fun.
I think it's that time. I mean, it's almost 12:30 a.m. my time, so we should probably stop the show.
Please.
But
It is 12:30.
thank you so much for listening, watching, however you consume this podcast. And we will return next week with another episode. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Fairly well.